back 10 years at two of the topics that we covered in our Dead Air Live shows 10 years ago. Now, the most obvious one, and the one that most everybody would be familiar with that happened 10 years ago, is the Persian Gulf War. And we're going to look at a series of tapes from 1991 that the Somerville Producers Group put together about the Gulf War, or that we, succeeded in being able to show. And then in the second half of the show, we're going to be looking at public access and the history of public access in Somerville a little bit. So to start out, we're going to take the broad overview of the Persian Gulf War, which what I'm going to show you first is a tape that I called Section 43. This is one that I edited together, and what I did during the Gulf War was I had my VCR set up, and I taped the first 10 minutes of CNN news every half hour for days on end, and all day and all night, and I just kept changing tapes, and I've got this whole selection of videotape of not every report was just the Persian Gulf War, but they'd always touch on the war within the first 10 minutes of the news hour, or it was headline news. So it was the first 10 minutes always had something to cover the war in it. And with that, I put together this first tape, which is called Section 43. Now it's called Section 43 because back in 1967, Country Joe and the Fish did a song called Section 43, which is the song that's playing in the background of this tape. And for years I was trying to think of what good imagery for this song would be, because it's a very haunting song. And this was the images that I thought was particularly apt, or I suppose the correct way to put it is that this song seemed particularly apt to images of war, which is interesting because actually it's from a different war. But it was from a Vietnam era. It's a Vietnam era song put onto the Persian Gulf War. And if the tape is ready, let's roll that, and then I'll be back to talk more about the Gulf War.
The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberty or democratic process.
A new world order. A new world order. A new world order. To lead the world away from the dark chaos of dictators toward the brighter promise of a better day.
Repeated acts of violence against the armed forces of the United States must be met not only with alert defense, but with positive reply.
Soaring optimism as news of successful Allied airstrikes came through.
All of you are responsible. All of you. Arming the people for the sake of oil. As if we are Red Indians. We are human beings. Who made this area like this? The flames in the area. It's the West.
The offered hand is a reluctant fist.
If in fact, for whatever reason, and we don't have an explanation, if in fact, and again I have to emphasize that because I don't know all the facts as to, we don't like to really tell you what type of weapons we use, but let me say that you've seen the film and photography.
I've spoken of 1,000 points of light.
And when I said I want a kinder, gentler nation, I meant it, and I mean it.
You find one of these, you're going to win it. You're going to eat about 14 pounds of explosives. They're not going to find your shoes. They're not going to find nothing. See a little red mist there. See a little red mist there. See a little red mist there.
Points of light. The 1,000 points of light.
Cruel hoax. We have no argument with the people of Iraq.
This nation has never found glory in war. Glory in war. Glory in war.
I'm reporting to you now from a spot about 20 yards from the command of a starting armored unit. We are 20 or 30 miles into Kuwaiti territory. I can't be any more specific than that, and I wouldn't want to be any more specific than that, frankly.
What are they trying to hide? The answer might be casualties from shelling, collapsing morale, disaffection, insurrection, incompetent officers, poorly trained troops, malfunctioning equipment, widespread illness. Who knows? And that's the point. We don't know.
studio. That was my look at the Persian Gulf War. And I drew on any number of sources. There's a few things in there that I have always been particularly impressed with. It started out with Dwight Eisenhower's farewell speech about the military-industrial complex, and ended with Walter Cronkite talking to Congress about what are they trying to hide by having the press access to the troops totally suppressed during the raids, the entry into Kuwait. But that was, you know, like I said, that was my look at the Gulf War. And during the war and the bombings that we did in February of that year, we did a show called Somerville Speaks Out about the war, where we had Somerville residents come into the studio and express their opinions about what the United States was doing in terms of the foreign policy involved with the Gulf War and the whole Middle Eastern situation. And as part of that show, we went out up into Davis Square and just asked regular people on the street at the subway station and around Davis Square what they thought about the war, because we weren't trying to get a single outlook on the war. We wanted to get a kind of a cross-section of what people were thinking about it at the time. And this next tape we're going to see is the tape that we had, that we edited out of the interviews. And we didn't edit very much out of the interviews. We left pretty much everything that people had to say about the war. And it was a show. The show we had, Somerville Speaks Out, was on February 19th of '91. And well, let's go to the tape.
Do you think that the United States went in too fast?
I think we did, yeah. I think personally we should have given sanctions more of a chance to work.
Well, I support President's view about the war.
You support President Bush's view about the war. Do you think that he went in at the right time? Do you think it was too fast, too slow?
No, I think he went at the right time, sure. If we have certain principles that to get rid of this person who's an evil to that area, you know, it's fine, you know.
Talking about Saddam Hussein.
Saddam Hussein, sure. Yeah.
Get rid of him.
Sure, yeah.
So what is your hope how things will be resolved?
I wish United States should get rid of him first, you know, and save a lot of thousands of lives and going into war, you know.
What are your thoughts about what's going on in the Middle East right now?
Well, I have mixed feelings, just sort of like the Congress. The fact that there was such controversy about what to do back, middle of January, I sort of like that as well. I sort of side with the Democrats. There was some room for patience, both in military as well as diplomacy as well. I hope that this can be resolved quickly without too many casualties, of course, but I have very mixed feelings at present.
Do you think the United States acted too quickly?
Yes, exactly. Actually, I'm reading Thomas Friedman's book, From Beirut to Jerusalem, right now, and I suppose that captures my feelings about the origins of the problem there as well as how to solve it. The U.S. typically comes in like a big elephant, not understanding the problem, and tries to use superior force. It will work this time, but lives and the casualties will be probably too high.
Feelings about how it affects us here?
I have cousins. I also have very close friends who are in the Middle East right now. So it'll affect me directly. As far as broadly as a society, I feel that I can't travel right now. That's the other direct thing. I mean, there's a lot of geopolitical long-term effects, which we can't really discuss that well in this context. But peace is a very difficult thing to achieve, and clearly this is one in a series of events that are going to constantly rock the Middle East as long as we don't try to achieve some consolidated peace with all of these countries, not just Iraq, but also the Jordan-Palestinian problem.
It's useless. This is not a war that we used to have before. This is something that they were wondering about the nuclear bombs and this and that, how far it would go in time. This was not a war. This was a time thing to see those things. And in the meantime, who suffered? I saw a little baby with a bonnet on. Please don't tell me. Yeah, what's going to happen with the ground war now? There'll be a bloody battle. And for what? It's useless. Why don't they just go in there and get him? That's all.
Get him.
Get him, yes.
So you feel if they got shot on?
Oh, yes. There's too much bloodshed. Children are suffering. And for what? It's a useless war.
I thought that the sanctions weren't working, so or weren't working quick enough. So I did support the movement of troops into, or the air raids on Iraq and Kuwait at that time.
At the right time.
Yeah, I think so.
Do you know of anyone personally in the Gulf? How do you think, are you affected here in the United States by what's going on?
I do know a couple people over in the Gulf. I'm concerned about their well-being. Yeah, I just hope that nothing happens to them, but I don't know what else to say. I mean, I hope they come home quickly, and I hope, they do what they need to do.
What do you think about this war?
Tell you the truth, we talked about it in school a few times, but I just came up with the same old answers. It's stupid. Yeah. Sending all those people out there just fight and die over just like oil. I know we need it, but I mean, I don't think we need it enough to have people die and their families wishing that they're coming home, knowing that it's like a 90 to 10 chance that they won't come home. There's still people, either way you put it, even though if they're from this part of the world or this part, I just can't say.
What exactly do you mean?
I just mean, like, I just hope they just break off, forget about the whole thing, work something out. Because they don't need people dying out there, and we don't need people dying out here.
Well, we need the money for other things. But I work in a preschool center, and we're being cut back drastically, overwhelmingly, overnight. And more children are being cut off the rolls because of the war. Because there's no funding going to Office for Children and other kind of vouchers and things. And I think the war just accumulates this kind of nationalistic attitude, but avoids the problems that we have right here. This war is totally outrageous, and who does it support? It supports a small group of elite people in Kuwait, that it's an aristocracy, and we're supposed to be a democracy supporting an aristocracy. I mean, there's so many contradictions to this whole thing. I'm totally opposed to every aspect of this.
I think there's going to be more anti-Arab and anti-Middle East racism.
Well, there's no question about it, I mean, it's kind of funny. People want to be over there to defend Kuwait, but they want to go after, that they feel uncomfortable around Arab people. They think that they're all terrorists or, doing terrorist actions or planning some subversive, conspiratorial plot,
I think it's crazy.
Yeah?
I think it's crazy, and I'm really scared. Like, I'm Arab. Living here, I have a lot of friends, American friends, and they feel like it's hurt inside of me. I don't like discrimination later, because the next generation, I don't know what's going to happen to them. And that's what scared me about the war.
What do you think about the people in the United States, the anti-war activists, the people that are protesting the war?
God bless them. Why should they stay down? How can they stay down?
So that's what Somerville was thinking about the Gulf War in February of 1991. Obviously, there's quite a range of feeling there. It's interesting 10 years on to look at it. We still have a number of children that were killed and maimed in that war that still are our problem. And obviously, the people who are saying that we should just go in and take care of Saddam Hussein did not get their wish fulfilled out of the war. as Saddam Hussein is still perfectly happy and in power in Iraq. Now, about the same time that we were doing these on-the-street interviews, February of 1991, former Attorney General Ramsey Clark went on a fact-finding mission to Iraq to see what the effect of the bombing was, to see, everybody had been talking about what precision bombing it was, and the smart bombs and the missiles and all that would send video signals until they smashed into their target. Ramsey Clark, who I think was Attorney General under Carter, but I'm under President Carter. But he went on a fact-finding mission to Iraq to speak with the people and get videotape of what had happened in the area. And this next tape you're going to see is an excerpt from his tape called Nowhere to Hide. And let's roll that tape.
The man who lived in this home received his PhD from Cairo University. He and his wife were killed. The miracle is that only 14 people were killed, and the reason so few is they had fled because of the bombing. These are middle-class, upper-middle-class people, and they had cars, and they left. As you see, this person with the Volkswagen Bug didn't leave and probably didn't live. We're going there to determine the extent of civilian casualties and damage to civilian life caused by U.S. bombing. I think as an American, I have to be concerned about life and have to be concerned about the conduct of our government. This neighborhood in Baghdad took several direct bomb hits.
Your family was hurt? Your father was hurt?
Yes.
Tell me, what happened to your father?
His leg broken and his hand and all face. No face. No. His lips and nose, everything. His eyes.
From the fire?
From the fire and
We found the woman's father in the hospital. His face had been virtually burned off.
It's very badly injured.
And how about these people?
This one, this family had lost her 3 sons and her husband.
Does she know?
And his nephew, yes.
Does she know that they died?
No, she didn't know. We didn't tell her till now.
Doctor, are these the bodies of that family? The 2 women that are lying there? This is what's left of her family, that's it?
Yes, yes. There were others visiting them, I think, from the names we take, and they also get the same injury.
What do you say?
He's coming for his daughter.
Uh-huh. And what happened to your daughter? You came to the hospital, what happened to her?
They said she's get hit and she died.
She died?
Yeah.
How old was she?
قد عمرها عمي 61 ماتت. قد عمرها 61 20 years old.
The doctors have reached the point of despair, an endless stream of victims. There's no electricity, there's no heat, there's not even water to wash your hands before you move from one victim's wounds to the next. Basra had been heavily bombed. Many of the factories and gas stations had been destroyed, half a dozen residential areas badly damaged. Even the Sheraton Hotel had been hit.
Well, boy, they really nailed this neighborhood.
Most probably he was trying to hit this bridge.
Oh, you think he was trying to hit the bridge over here? But if they were trying to hit the bridge, they missed.
They missed it the second time.
Oh, yeah?
The bombs just missed the teaching hospital. The people said they wanted to blow the bridge up themselves to stop the attacks.
What do you think, you? What's your idea?
I think you're pretty angry. Yeah?
We are all angry.
This letter from the owner of the house to tell his brother, please come and meet me in certain place because our house been destroyed.
The house is really, it is really wrecked, isn't it? And how many people died in here, Katuri?
كم واحد ميتين هنا؟ كم واحد مات هنا؟ 28. 28 people die here.
28 people died here?
Yeah.
School book. The school books?
Yeah, that's right. See, handwriting, you know, everything. Poor people. Furniture.
Your town, Basra, is not doing too well, is it?
No, it's not really. It's hit very badly. Now, two wars been hit very badly, with the Iranian war and with the Ally war. You know, it's really, this city it suffered a lot. And I feel sorry for my hometown.
There's absolutely no basis in law for bombing the city of Basra, the residential areas here, for trying to destroy their water supply, their electricity, their telephone system, their means of communication and transportation. The people are getting sick from the water. The kids are out of school. The hospitals are full of injured people. And the cemeteries are filling up with dead people. The Central Market in Basra had been hit. It has 1,000 vendors. Most of them had left.
What's this?
That's Iraqi date. That's fresh date. Yeah, that's right. قول له احكي له بالعربي قول له شنو هذا قول له.
هذا تمر عراقي. تمر عراقي نوديه للخارج.
This is the biggest seller in the market now, the candles, because there's no electricity?
No light big. Yeah.
He's buying a lot, huh?
هذا يشتمل لك هواية حتى.
Yeah, all people take. Yeah, all people is, take the light.
From you?
Yeah.
What's this, Ramsey?
This looks like a crater from one of the famous Tomahawk cruise missiles that are so notoriously surgically accurate. Probably hit the checkout counter at the supermarket, as they call it, a bunch of shops here. This is the large farm market for the city of Basra. 8 people were killed, 40 injured. The miracle is that there weren't many, many more. It happened at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And you can see from the size of the crater that the concussion through the area must have been enormous.
What was this, Kaduri?
The Pepsi company, that's the biggest company really in Basra.
The Pepsi factory?
Yeah, that's right. I was kid, I used to come in here and buy the Pepsi myself with a bottle, old-fashioned bottle. Yeah.
When I went inside there, I didn't see any Pepsi bottles at all. So I'm wondering if the United States is going to say that there's something about the technology of bottling plants, like milk bottling plants, soda bottling plants, that lends itself to chemical warfare or something like that. Do you think that that might be possible?
Anything's possible as far as what they'll say. We know that. They don't know as much as they claim to know, and they don't tell us what they really know, and they lie. So you can't depend on that. What you know is that Katuri, who is with us, who's a man you've known for a long time, a U.S. citizen, bought Pepsis from that very plant when he was a kid. It's been there since the late 50s. It's a Pepsi plant. But you're right here behind it in this residential street, and look what you've done.
So that gives you some idea what it's like touring someplace that has been bombed into the Stone Ages, and the effect that it has on the local population. The fact that there is no such thing as surgical strikes when it comes to bombing. It's a very, very difficult tape to watch. When the war ended, we have one more tape about the Persian Gulf War. When the war ended, there were all the parades that were given for the returning veterans, so that none of the veterans would come back with the same kind of feelings that the veterans from the Vietnam War came back with. They would, because the veterans from Vietnam did not get a warm reception. That was not true of the veterans of the Persian Gulf War. And the next tape is a look at the celebration that went on in this country as the troops were returning home after the Persian Gulf War. And the effect from the bombing and everything else that was going on still there was, of course, not felt in the United States. What was felt was the sense of elation and celebration. So we've got a tape now about the celebration that followed the end of the war. So let's watch that.
Up, 2, 3, 4, marching down the street, rolling of the drums and the tramping of the feet. General salutes and the mothers waving we. Here comes the big parade. Don't be afraid, price is paid. One more parade. So young, so strong, so ready for the war, so willing to go and die upon a foreign shore. All march together, everybody looks the same, so there is no one you can blame. Don't be ashamed, light the flame, one more parade. Listen for the sound and listen for the noise, listen for the thunder of the marching boys. A few years ago their guns were only toys. Here comes the big parade. Don't be afraid, price is paid, one more parade. So young, so strong, so ready for the war, so willing to go and die upon a foreign shore. All march together, everybody looks the same, so there's no one you can blame. Don't be ashamed, light the flame, one more parade. Medals on their coats and guns in their hands, trained to kill as they're trained to stand. 10,000 ears need only one command. Here comes the big parade. Don't be afraid, price is paid, one more parade. So young, so strong, so ready for the war, so willing to go and die upon a foreign shore. All march together, everybody looks the same, so there's no one you can blame. Don't be ashamed, light the flame, one more parade. Cold, hard stares on faces so proud, kisses from the girls and cheers from the crowd. And the widows from the last war crying to their shrouds, here comes the big parade. Don't be afraid, price is paid. Don't be ashamed, war's a game, world in flames, so start the parade.
That's the end of our look at the Persian Gulf War. And that was Phil Oakes, for those of you who like to keep track of who does specific songs. One more parade. Now, we move on to the other half of the show, which is about access and the history of access in Somerville. We're coming up on a new cable contract renegotiation for the Somerville cable franchising. And SCAT, the station you're watching, is looking for public input into the process. So they're holding a series of meetings that are workshops to get people involved in what access could be, should be, will be. And in keeping with that, the first thing I want to show you from 10 years ago was a tape of Jerry Field, who was the executive director of SCAT at the time, talking about public access.
Some of the previous guests alluded to, that it's a combination of a lot of different efforts from a lot of different people. The fact that we've had a very large and active membership, both individuals and organizations. Just last night on Community TV Week, we did a special with a lot of the different community organizations that have used Access, and right now we have over 40 organizations that are involved. You know, that kind of effort of a community actually using the resources that are made available through the cable license, that's really the key. And we've been very lucky, I think, to work in the kind of community that has that kind of interest in access.
That interest existed, though, in the old contract. What's different about the new one?
Well, I guess I'm trying to be humble for the SCAT involvement too. I think what Linda mentioned before, I think, is really a key. Is that you know, we like to say that the SCAT is a community resource center that happens to be a communications center, but also SCAT was designed to make access work. That was the whole intention of the creation of the nonprofit. And I think that with the community involvement on the board, the community involvement through membership and producers, we're not a television station making programs for people in the community. It's the community making programs themselves.
Now, we have come a long way to the point where we received a national recognition for being an outstanding cable station. But the future is maybe a little bit more in question. What's going on?
Well, I think that one of the things that that was a difficulty with the current license was the fact that the annual level of funding from Warner Cable, which is an important part of the support that we do receive, but the annual level of funding is a flat level of funding, and we right now get $85,000 a year and $1982. And as you mentioned yourself a few years ago in that clip that we just saw, right now in 1990, those $1982 are looking very thin. And at a time when, as Erwin had mentioned before, where we have been able to have some success in raising additional funds, with the economic climate being the way that it is and the competition for the philanthropy dollar out there being as tight as it is, it becomes increasingly difficult for us to try to keep up that level of activity and that level of funding.
Also on that October of 1991 show on the future of access in Somerville, we had an interview, a tape that got sent to us actually from Cambridge Community TV of the person who was their executive director at the time, who was also the first executive director of Somerville Community Access Television, talking about the comparison between Somerville Access and Cambridge Access. So the next tape we're going to see is Erwin Hipsman, who, as I said, has been the executive director of both access centers, talking a little bit about the difference between Cambridge and Somerville, and the what he saw at that time as going on potentially for access, as what we were looking at in that show was the future of access in Somerville, and that's what you're about to hear about from Erwin.
Television. Currently, I'm the director of Cambridge Community Television. Comparing the two is an interesting exercise, not because I was at both, but I think they're interesting institutions. First of all, they're working in communities, Cambridge and Somerville, and that means many things to lots of different people, and I don't need to go into the demographics of the two communities. But the access centers have different histories. First of all, Somerville has had access for about 20 years. Cambridge has had it for about 4 years. SCAT is located in a very prominent location in Union Square, while CCTV is located at an office park in 1 Kendall Square. CCTV has twice as many members and twice the budget of SCAT, and the similarities are perhaps more important. First of all, they're both nonprofit corporations, and we both have a very similar philosophy for access television. We really both look at the community coming in, being able to make the programs without any content restriction, and I think both of us do a very good job at what we do. Another difference is that we both have different cable companies. We are interconnected, however, so we do share programming. So we look at each other as a very different relationship between the two organizations as we would another nonprofit, in that we both share borders and we do share programming and we share some members as well. 10 years ago, there were no nonprofit corporations running community access stations. They were all run by the cable operators. Somerville was really at the cutting edge in setting up a nonprofit corporation. However, by being the first, they were also not made mistakes, but had to live with being the experimenters. Things in their contract like no capital reallocation. We at Cambridge get a percentage of the gross, 3% of the gross, where Somerville gets a flat fee. We were able to grow as the cable operator grow, whereas Somerville, their $85,000 remained constant, and with a consumer price index and inflation, their money actually was less over time. The most important thing from 10 years ago was the cooperation between the city, Warner Cable, and Somerville Community Television. SCAT was once a jewel in the crown of access, and today it's tarnished just through age. And I think with the cooperation of the three, that once again Somerville Community Television can be a gem of community access in the United States. Thank you.
So that was Erwin Hipsman, and that was his unique view on the differences and similarities between Somerville and Cambridge. Admittedly, it was 10 years ago. The differences are different now than they were then, although some of the similarities are still the same. Cambridge has moved into a much nicer, more central facility in Central Square, and SCAT is still here in the firehouse, but the franchises have changed and any number of things have changed. Now SCAT is looking for community input into what the future of SCAT should be now, and we'll be looking for that during the next tape. I'll come in and give you times that you can go and be involved in what the future of access is. For now, what I want to do is I want to show you a little bit of what access was. Some early Somerville access. This isn't 10 years ago, this is 25 years ago, 27 years ago. Let's watch some early access.
Makeup, get the makeup. What? Is it time? Get off, we're on the air, we're on now. We're on. Is it time to go home? You're on, the movie's over. Sounds good. Sounds good?
And here we are again. What did you hide? And how was that for a clinker? Aren't we like little pieces of rust on your fence? Yeah, I suppose that's my way of putting it, Zamboni.
Hey, you coming down for supper?
No, I don't think we are going to make supper, you bloody peasant fool. But my old man here, I think he'd come down there and give you a smack in the face.
Yes, you brutes, why don't you shave? I mean, look at all of you, long hairs, hippies. I mean, well, you know, I think that, as you can see myself, I go to a barber at least once a week, and it pays. I don't have to live with cockroaches and lice like you bunch of dirty peasants. You know you do. And furthermore, could you stop that infernal clatter that you get, that rock and roll that you are playing at late at night? I do find it disturbing.
Now,
very disturbing.
if you want to
And my
have some
wife,
input into what access
keeps her
can
awake
be
at night, so she has
in the
to
future,
Valium and
you know, this
Librium.
was very basic. This was black and white. It was, you took things like old movies and just commercials, whatever, and you just made them different. But tomorrow, June 13th, 2001, at 6:30, there'll be a workshop held at 165 Broadway, the corner of Cross Street and Broadway in Somerville, which its focus will be on business and community, including seniors and youth. But if you're interested in going, go and give your input.
Here we are in the second edition of Sports Roundup.
Thursday, there'll be two different meetings, one at 10 o'clock in the morning on local government officials and agencies at the Somerville Library main branch, and there will be one at 6:30, the cafeteria of Tufts Administration Building, 167 Holland Street, which is about human-based, with human service agencies and faith-based organizations. Also on Friday at 5 p.m. at the Kennedy School Science Lab, there'll also be one. So any of those that you would enjoy being a part of and, you know, giving your input into the whole thing, please do, because SCAT can use your input and get out of the way so that you can hear the old-time Somerville community access. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy.
Well, what kind of pitches were you using back then? I know baseball has changed a lot, but the pitching has relatively stayed the same now.
Well, we use water pitches.
Take it easy. Money, I love money. More money for me. More. Come in, come in, come in.
It's the peasants of Somerville, sire.
Well, I guess I have a few moments.
Let's go.
Sit down, sit down. But don't make yourself too comfortable. Now, what is it you're taking up my precious time about?
Are you truly the president of Warner Cable? I mean, the king of Warner Cable?
No, I'm Wilt Chamberlain, here disguised. Is this silly questions all you come to ask me?
No, we have some important things. You're charging our citizens...
Speak up, speak up.
You're charging our citizens in Somerville a lot of money for cable television.
And we want it lowered.
Yes, we're not going to give you any more increases.
What? What? I can't hear you. I hear the weather is nice in Spain this time of year. Is that what you said?
Sire, we're not going to let you have any more increases on cable television. No more. That's it.
Increases?
Yes.
No, you have the story all wrong.
And your attitude about public access is despicable.
I'm always accessible to the public. I don't know what you're talking about. Do you mind if I order some lunch? Send my secretary for some Chinese food, please. Now, what is your business?
We want the rates of cable TV lowered, or else you live up to the contract.
What?
The contract you signed, the contract.
I can hear very well, young man. You don't have to shout. Now, what do you want?
We want you to live up to the contract. It's right here and here.
Show me this.
Better watch him. He's really
Look at these
sneaky.
people coming in here while I'm counting my money. Read it. I can't read. Read it to me.
I, the king of Warner Cable.
How do I know you're telling the truth? I think I am the king of Warner Cable, not you. Wait a minute, you're starting off all wrong.
Well,
What? Speak up, young man. You came here with something to say.
you representing the east part of the city, what do you think?
We are getting 2 more channels that we should have gotten in the contract where it says right there in the 3rd clause. And we yet we have to pay
Last year we
more.
were supposed to get them.
And
You
we-
should
yet
be
we still have
grateful
to
that
pay
you have
more.
them.
We only
But
have...
It was out of the goodness of my heart to assign those channels to you people, especially you from the East End. You're lucky you have electricity. My God, ungrateful, ungrateful. I haven't heard of such stuff. No, no, no. I think you people have the wrong attitude. Progress is what we want. Progress, and that means money. Now show me some money. Money.
But you
money.
promised us a...
Money, money. I want the money.
But you promised
Give me
us
the
a
money.
studio.
I'm sorry.
This money, take
I'm
it.
sorry.
The only thing I'll give you...
No.
Give me that money.
Yes,
I want the money.
Well, very briefly, I was inspired to write this song when I saw a TV news story on the city of Los Angeles holding a contest to see who could write the best song about Los Angeles. And the entries were, I thought there were going to be all sorts of funky songs, from Hollywood songwriters, John Denver would do something. L.A. makes me think of eagles. Of course, almost everything does. Something really funky like that. That's why I was so shocked when the actual entries came in. It was just, you have never heard such stuff in your life, like Los Angeles, City of the Angels, and City of the Angels, Los Angeles, and Lost City of the Angels, Angeles. Really bad. And I started thinking, if you have a city of 3 million people, and the only thing you can think to write about is the English translation of its name, what would you be reduced to writing about if you had a smaller, slightly less interesting city to write about? Well, that got the old creative sap flowing, so to speak. And the creative sap came up with this. Hi. So glad you could make it for our last show here at the Blue Cheese Room in the Tip Top Lounge. People are always talking and singing about the big cities where they live. San Francisco, where those funny cable cars climb halfway to the stars. Chicago, where you can see a man dance with his wife. Whoopee. But you never hear songs about little towns, places that may not be so important to the map makers, but are awfully darned important to the people who live there. I live in a town like that. A place not too far from here, one that you probably all know, but have never really thought much about. That's why I'd like to tell you about it right now. It may not be like New York and Paris, and London and Rome. Yes, they all have their charms, I agree. But the people who call all those places their home miss something. Just take it from me. The Louvre and the UN have beauty. They shine with a kind of a sheen. But far from the Ritz in Massachusetts is a place with the grace of a queen. There is a town around old Boston Bay, a place where time and life stand still. Just follow your nose and heart, and soon your feet will find themselves in Somerville. The city center there is filled with streets. A sub shop graces every hill. You might think you're dreaming, and again you might not. Anyway, you're in Somerville. Come watch the buildings stand up proud and tall, while far below the pavement hugs the ground. At night, the stoplights change their hue from red to green. Then they change back from green to red. A carnival of color here in Somerville. Too bad that everyone's in bed. A wondrous place where branches hang on every tree, where people go to work and then go home. So come to where the rain and snow fall from the sky, where day is light and night is dark and still. Yes, come watch nature on display. It's always free of charge. That's how it is in Somerville. In Somerville, oh Somerville, my Somerville.